welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel, the owner and creator here at the Eclectic Cottage in Spokane, Washington. Happy Thursday, everyone. For today's video, I have a few projects for you. A couple of them are thrift flips. The other one, the first project, is more of a DIY. I love how they all came together. I hope you guys do too. And without further ado, let's get to today's projects. A few videos ago, I created a sign that had some castings on it from the newer mold set by Redesign with Prima called Shimmering Holiday Ornaments. And while I had the mold out, I went ahead and made some extra castings so that I could create some Christmas ornaments with them. I am making those ornaments for today's video, and I'm starting by giving my ornaments each a coat of paint. I separated them into halves, and I'm painting half of them with DIY's Little Black Dress and half of them with DIY's Fancy Farm Girl. Once my paint was dry, it was time to start decorating my ornaments, and for this first one, I'm doing a little bit of an experiment. I took a touch of the clear liquid patina by DIY, and I mixed in a little bit of the metallic pigment powder by Redesign with Prima. This one's kind of a rose gold color, and I am just lightly brushing that over my ornament, not trying to get full coverage here, just trying to get a good shiny coat over the black. To help really accentuate the details, I went over everything with some dark wax by DIY and then just gently wiped back the excess. And as a last coat, I added a little bit of Decor wax by Redesign with Prima called Eternal, and I'm just rubbing that on with my finger, and then this ornament will be finished. I did the same thing with my next ornament. I added some of the pigment powder. This one was a little bit more of an antique gold color to the liquid patina. And then while the liquid patina was still wet, I tapped a little bit more of that fine powder over the top, just over the details, really trying to make them shine. Lastly, I took a little bit of a lighter gold pigment powder and I very gently went over just the flowers in my casting to really highlight them and make them a little bit different than the rest of it so that they stood out a little bit. For my next ornament, I am going over my details in the casting with Pennies from Heaven, which is a beautiful copper colored liquid patina by DIY. Once that was done and dry, I went over everything with some clear wax, followed up with some dark wax to really help bring those details out. Then I just wiped back the excess wax with a dry shop towel, and as a last step I went over the detail with a little bit more pigment powder in a close color to the copper, just to make everything shine. For my next ornament, I am starting with a coat of DIY's clear wax. I want to go over this one with some pigment powder, and the wax will really help make the pigment powder stick. I'm using a gold pigment powder on this one, and I'm just using a brush to brush that on, going heavily over the details and a little lighter over the kind of open areas of the ornament. Once I was finished with that, I took a little bit lighter color of gold and went over the detail again, just to make them a little bit different so that they really would stand out well. On to the Fancy Farm Girl ornaments, and for this first one, I am going over the details very lightly with some golden liquid patina by DIY. This one is called Golden Ticket, and once that was dry, I went right over it with some dark wax. I'm putting that directly over the paint. I really wanted this to deepen up that color and leave some of that dark wax in all of the details of this ornament. Wiping the excess back with a dry shop towel, and then again just going over the details with some of that pigment powder. You can see here I'm just using my fingertip to apply that pigment powder, and then as a little added touch to this ornament, I'm going over the flowers with a different shade of the metallic pigment powder, just applying that with a brush. For this next ornament, I am using basically the same technique to start, only I'm switching back over to the Pennies from Heaven Copper Patina, just very lightly going over the details with that. And then once that's dry, I'm going to go over the ornament with a coat of clear wax by DIY first, wiping that back very gently with a dry shop towel once I'm finished. And I'm going to be following that up with some white wax by DIY. I just figured I would try this for a little something different and see if I liked it. So I'm just wiping back that white wax again with a dry shop towel. And once I'm finished with that step, I'm going over the detail with, you guessed it, some more of the pigment powder by Redesign. These come in a pack of, I believe, 6 little colors. I could only find 4 because my cat decided she really liked playing with them. And so I've only got the 4 colors to use for these ornaments, but I'm really liking how they're all coming together. For this one, I switched back to the Golden Ticket Liquid Patina by DIY, and I am brushing it pretty heavily over the detail and then very lightly over the more open spaces on the ornament. I don't want complete coverage again. I really want some of that green poking through. Next up, I'm going over the entire ornament with a coat of DIY's clear wax. Then I am gently, again, just wiping back the excess with a dry shop towel. And then I am going over all of the detail with some dark wax by DIY to really help give that gold a little bit of patina and to make the details really shine. Then again, it's just adding a little bit of that pigment powder. I started using my fingertip and then I switched over to a brush. The brush is a little bit more liberal in its application, so it makes it a little faster to apply. And for the final ornament, I am keeping it simple. I'm going over it with a coat of clear wax by DIY, followed directly with a coat of dark by DIY, not wiping back the excess in between coats. And once I have that dark wax on, I am wiping back the excess, and then I'm adding some of the pigment powder over the top. Once I was finished with the fronts of all my ornaments, I did go ahead and flip them over, cleaned up the backs, and painted them all with a coat of their respective paint colors, and I sealed everything up with some liquid patina by DIY. I really love how these ornaments came out. I will definitely be making more in the future, and honestly, I don't even think I could tell you my favorite. If you have a favorite, let me know in the comments below. You might remember this little snowman figurine that I picked up recently. I got him at the same time that I got the little penguin that I recently made over. And I am giving this the same base coat that I did the penguin. It's just some Rustoleum 2X spray in matte white. And I'm going over the entire snowman with one good even coat of that paint. Once that's dry, I'm bringing him inside and I'm going over him with 2 good even coats of DIY's Crinoline. And as you can see here, I am pouncing that paint on, and this will help ensure that I don't have any brushstroke marks in my little snowman and that I have a nice even finish over the entire thing. I figured my little Christmas snowman could use some Christmas shine, so I am going over some of the details with Golden Ticket Liquid Patina by DIY. I'm just brushing that on, trying to be careful to keep it on the details only, and I ended up doing the trim on his coat all the way around, along with the band of his hat, and once I was finished with that, he needed a little something more, so I did his boots as well. Here's what he looked like once I was finished adding the gold. Then it was time to seal my paint, and I'm going over the entire thing with a good coat of DIY's clear wax first. I am applying that with a soft bristle brush in a nice even layer, and then I'm going over everything with a dry shop towel just to wipe back any of the excess wax. Now, to give my snowman a little bit more detail and character, I'm going over the entire thing with some dark wax by DIY. Now, it really helps that I already put down that buffer coat of the clear wax, so my dark wax isn't going to muddy my paint too terribly much. And then to really help make it go over smoothly and quickly, I add a little bit of mineral spirits to my wax, and that's what I use in the larger portions of my snowman. So you can see here it brushes on very easily and wipes back very quickly. So I just used that mix in the larger areas, and then when I'm going over more of the detail like this scarf, I'm going on with just the wax. Then I'm wiping that back with a dry shop towel, and that tends to give a little bit darker appearance to those particular areas. So I get almost a little bit of a two-tone look with my dark wax. So again, full strength, and then you'll see here in a second, I'm going to go over the broader portion with that glaze using the mineral spirits and the dark wax together. And then just wiping it back with my dry shop towel. And I'm just going to continue that process throughout the entire snowman until I am completely finished. And then this little guy will be done. I absolutely love the way he came out. He's very simple and neutral, and he is a perfect addition to my Christmas displays. For my third and final project, I decided to work on this Christmas tree that I picked up recently at the Goodwill. It's ceramic, it's got a very slick finish on it, and this thing gave me a run for my money. So I started by using the Cottage color Garden Sage. My original plan for this tree was to have a nice, smooth, flat surface to add a transfer to, but as I was painting, I began to worry that my transfer would end up pulling the paint and the original finish off of this tree, and I got that feeling just because I had a couple issues as I was painting it. So this is it after I put 3 coats of the Garden Sage on and then decided to switch directions. So I grabbed out Fancy Farmgirl by DIY, and I began pouncing or stippling the paint onto the tree just to give it a little bit of texture since I'm going in a completely new direction. I ended up only having to go over it once since I already had a pretty darn good base coat down. Since I decided to go a different direction with this tree, I needed a plan B. I didn't want to add a transfer. I didn't think I wanted to add decoupage paper, so I landed on using a mold. I went through my stash and I found some castings of an older mold by Redesign with Prima that I had. So I made some more and then I painted all of them with 2 coats of Golden Ticket Liquid Patina by DIY. Then I arranged them on my tree how I thought I wanted them, and I began the process of gluing them in place. Now, you would think this would be a pretty simple process, but since my tree had a curved surface and my castings were not curved, it was actually pretty difficult and took quite some time. I used my hairdryer to try and warm the castings to make them a bit more flexible, which helped a bit, but after I got each piece put down, I still had to hold it in place for quite a while and heat it with my hairdryer to get the glue to set. The other issue that I ran into was the glue. I had to put enough on so that my castings would stick as I was holding them in place, but it tended to ooze out as I pushed down, and then I would have to go around each one with a little paintbrush to try to clean up some of that gunky glue so that it didn't dry around the edges of my castings. If I didn't have enough glue, they would come right off. And when I had a little too much glue, this was the result. So it was definitely a process to get all of the castings onto this tree. I was so happy to have all of the castings in place. And then when I stood the tree up and was looking down on it, I realized there were some pretty significant gaps in places, and I just really didn't like how they looked. And I figured the only way to mitigate that issue was to fill those gaps in with some paint. So here I am going over everything again with another coat of Fancy Farmgirl. Once my paint was completely dry, it was time to seal my tree. As I've said in the past, DIY paint is clay-based and porous, and it can be reactivated with water, so it's necessary to give it a sealer. And in this case, as usual, I am starting with a coat of DIY's clear wax. I am just applying that with my soft bristle brush as always, and then very gently and carefully wiping back the excess clear wax. You can see here as I work on that top layer of castings that I'm using my brush to very gently push that wax into all of the nooks and crannies in my castings, just to make sure that everything is well sealed. Next up, I'm going to add some character and a little bit of depth and dimension to my tree using some DIY dark wax. For this step, I want to really focus on the castings. So I'm making sure to push a little bit of that dark wax into all of the nooks and crannies and really going in with a fairly heavy coat of the dark wax. Then I'm going over and just kind of dabbing the wax back off of the castings. And once I'm done with that, I'm adding a little more shadow just kind of around the castings, just to kind of blend the dark wax up into the rest of the tree. Then I'm going over the bulk of the tree, kind of the broad areas, with more of a wax glaze, again using the mineral spirits to thin it out a little bit and just giving it a good wash over the paint to give it some patina and really help blend those castings in. I also went around the underside of each of the different sections with a little bit more of the dark wax to add a bit of shadow. And of course, I worked my way up the tree one section at a time. Now, of course, no Christmas tree is complete without a little bit of sparkle. So I'm adding a touch of Decor wax in Eternal by Redesign with Prima to my castings. I'm just dabbing that on using my fingertip, and then my little Christmas tree is complete. It definitely was more work than I had anticipated, but I love how it all came together, and I really hope you guys like it too. That's it from here for today, you guys. I hope you liked my projects and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Did you have a favorite in the ornaments? I love how all of them came out, and it's so hard for me to choose. So if you did have a favorite, let me know what it was in the comments below. If you did enjoy the video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. I so appreciate that, you guys. And if you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel, and then of course hit the little notification bell so you don't miss anything. And then of course drop a comment below if you had a favorite ornament, if you had a favorite project from today's video. I always like to hear from you guys, so just drop your comments below. Also, a quick reminder, I do carry the paint and products I use in my videos. The website address is www.theeclecticcottagespokane.com. It's listed below in the description box as well. I carry not only the DIY paint and products, as well as Sweet Pickins milk paint and products, some Recycled Treasures decoupage papers, and of course some Redesign with Prima, so you can check that out there. And then let's see, for Sunday's video, we are probably going to be switching out to spring, you guys. As much as that is scary to say, Christmas season is pretty much over at this point. So it's time to kind of move on. I don't necessarily do a lot here in the shop for winter. I tend to put out some things that are kind of blue and white just to get through January. And then once that's over, I'm right into spring. So I am going to start working on some projects to have ready for my spring switchover. So join me back here on Sunday for those. I've already got a couple things set aside. I can't wait to show them to you. And until then, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week and beginning of the weekend. Thank you, of course, so much for being here. I always appreciate it, you guys, and I will see you back here on Sunday. Bye.